I would like to now invite Sapna Manjunath, 10th semester student of the Oxford School of Architecture, to present her project Samudra the Oceanarium. She's been a sincere student. I've been teaching her for the past 5 years, and one of the most sincere students, smiling all the way. Anytime her project is not working up, also she would still come, smile, and present it. So, Sapna, come up with your smile and present your project, Samudra the Oceanarium.
Thank you so much for the kind words, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sapna Manjunath, and I'm studying in 10th semester from the Oxford School of Architecture. So today I'll be talking about my thesis project, which is Samudra, the Oceanarium. So myself, if I have to describe myself, I describe myself as someone who really loves traveling. So this has been one of the reasons why I chose this topic, as I've been traveling throughout India from a lot of years because my dad used to work in a bank, so I've been traveling everywhere. So because of this, what I've observed is no matter where I went, most of the tourism places were like land or like religious or there were very less number of places where I actually could go, and there was marine tourism. So I've lived in a lot of coastal areas, and I've always been interested in what happens inside the sea. So that was one of the reasons why I took up this topic. So today I'll be presenting my thesis topic, which is Samudra, the Oceanarium. So my guide is architect Professor Pranoti Nagraj, and I'd like to thank her for all her guidance. So in today's webinar, I'd be discussing about why I chose this topic, which is my thesis synopsis, a brief insight on my case studies, my site analysis, why I chose that site, and how I've zoned my master plan and what are the concepts I've used for it. And I'll just be discussing about the conceptual designs, and I won't be going in detail since we don't have enough time. So I'll just be discussing about the conceptual designs. So first, I'd like to ask you, what is the first thing you observe when you see the map of India? Like, you might observe a lot of things, but one of the first things you observe is that it's a peninsula and it has water surrounded on three sides. So we have the Arabian Sea, we have the Indian Ocean, and we have Bay of Bengal, which tells us that there is a lot of marine species available around us. Now let's see another map where we've marked the major tourist destinations in India. And we see a lot of places like Qutub Minar, Agra, we see Gol Gumbaz, we see a lot of monuments, and then we see things like Wonderla, we see Ramoji Film City, and we see BGP Marine Kingdom in Chennai. So what do we understand from this? From the first map, what we understand is India has a long coastline of 7,000 and odd kilometer, and we have a lot of abundant fresh bodies, water bodies as well. But still, Indians have a very less knowledge of the resources that are pulled out from the ocean, saltwater fishes and the freshwater fishes. Now, in the second map, what do we observe? We observe that India is a hub for tourists, and most of the tourist destinations are either religious, monumental, land, or adventure tourism. And now, here rises my thesis question. Why is marine tourism not as developed as other forms of tourism in India, and how can it be resolved? So, this can be resolved, according to me, by proposing something like an oceanarium. So, first, what is an oceanarium? An oceanarium is nothing but an ocean plus an aquarium. It can be defined as a large seawater aquarium, which also has a lot of freshwater species in it. Now, there's only one small scale oceanarium present in India, as I mentioned, which is VGP Marine Kingdom in Chennai, despite having one of the longest coastlines, as we saw in the first map. Now, it would benefit people and the country both globally and economically. And oceanariums are not just for entertainment purposes, but will also cater to marine enthusiasts and biologists. And one of the major reasons would be educating people in the respect of the awareness it creates on how human habits and pollution affect sea creatures, and would teach us how to live in coordination without harming them. And this can be stressed out it cannot be stressed out better than through entertainment facility. Now, what are the aims and objectives? So, tourism is not the only objective. We have ecology, education, entertainment, and tourism. So, in ecology, as I mentioned, we it's the conservation of marine species and how we can reduce pollution. And in education, see now, why did I take up architecture? I took up architecture because I grew up in a lot of different places, seeing a lot of interesting buildings, and I was interested in it. Now, if we don't have something related to marine species or marine flora and fauna in like in our country where people travel for tourism, people won't really know if they're interested in marine species or not. So I personally believe that having something like an oceanarium can spark interest in youngsters' minds. So education and also people who are interested and who are already studying about it, it would help them. And then for the entertainment, it's pretty obvious. It's proposed to be a center of recreation and tourism to change the way people interact with the environment. So these four are the objectives which we have in this topic. Now the scope, as we already discussed in the first slide, it has one of the world's largest peninsulas. It has a lot of perennial water bodies, and we have a very good fauna which not a lot of us know about. And the reason why marine species and tourism is decreased is because urbanization, progressive development, and pollution has led to the decline in marine species, which leads to the decline in tourism as well as fishery industry. Now, we have negative impacts for everything, and having an oceanarium has a negative impact as well. So let's discuss about that. So as marine tourism expands, so does the impact of the industry on coastal ecosystems. But with better planning and practices, tourism can be safeguarded, and it can also help lift local people out of poverty. Now, as you see in the in the chart, what I've mentioned, 95% of local people can be, you can give them jobs, and it helps in the local economy as well. Now, the approach of how the negative impacts can be decreased is promoting the adequate use of marine and coastal resources, and while creating economic benefits for local communities, as I said. Now, improved environmental practice and supporting regulatory frameworks, and we can engage the industry as partners in the efforts to protect marine habitats and biodiversity. Now, one of the other reasons why I was motivated to take up this topic was because there's an article written by Rick Lee upon the hidden health benefits of aquariums and fish tanks. He explains how water bodies and movement of fishes can improve mental and physical health of human beings. So, not just for the nature, even mentally, when you walk inside an aquarium or an oceanarium, it helps you mentally and it releases your stress. Now, let's talk about the few case studies I've done. I'm not going to go in detail. I'll just tell you the inferences, whatever I understood from these case studies. So the first one is the Georgia Aquarium in United States. And the inferences, what I understood was the multi-directional circulation causes confusion. So usually when you walk inside an oceanarium, it's always better to have a unidirectional movement. And it has a lot of different levels, like it's spanned across 2 floors, and it creates interest. Now, the second one is the Blue Planet in Denmark. Now, the inference, what I got from this is it has a unidirectional circulation, which creates no confusion and movement. And the form is aesthetically appealing and it attracts tourists. Now, the third one is Taraporewala Aquarium in India, which is in Mumbai. So, the inference from this is exterior doesn't give a sense of grandeur and interior design is minimal. So whenever you walk or whenever you see, a building from outside, especially a tourist place, it's supposed to give you a feeling of, like if you're walking into a marine building, it should give you a feeling that, okay, I'm walking into something like a marine building. So that is not seen in most of the case studies I've done. Now, the fourth one is the VGP Marine Kingdom in India, which is the only oceanarium present right now. And the inferences I got from it was the interior level difference creates interest, as in the first one. And the exterior view does not give a sense of grandeur. Again, it doesn't look like it's something related to a marine building. So, just giving, just putting two symbols of a fish or something, it doesn't really make you feel like you're walking into something. When you walk into an oceanarium, you should feel like you're actually walking inside the ocean. So that those were some of the few inferences I got from my case studies. Now let's move on to site analysis. So introduction to my site. Where is my site? So as you can see the map, India, Kerala, Kodangallur, Methla, and my proposed site. So my site is in Kerala, which is in the Kodangallur district of Thrissur. And it is an island which is spanned over 10 acres of land. And one of the main things about this island is it has a connection from both Thrissur and Kochi, both districts which are very famous in India and have a lot of tourist places around. So here I have explained what are the major tourist spots, and I've shown that the distance from Cochin Airport and the distance from Thrissur both are around 25 to 30 kilometer. So people can, actually come to this tourist place from both the sides. Now the climate study, the major winds are from the southwest, and you see the windrows pattern. This site might be prone to flood because we saw 2 years ago, as we saw this, the whole coastal area of Kerala was prone to floods. So we'll have to keep that in mind. Now, yeah, let's talk about the land use. So now, this is very different. Building on an island is very different than building on a land which is not surrounded by any water body. Because if you have a water body surrounding, especially the coastal areas, you have something called the CRZ, which is the Coastal Regulation Zone. And these zones are divided into different parts, like CRZ1 to CRZ4. And my site it comes under CRZ2, which falls under tourism category. And CRZ2, you're allowed to build on it. CRZ1A, you're not allowed to build on it. So CRZ2, I don't have a problem building on this site. Now, as you see the land use map, it falls under tourism promotion area. So yeah, obviously Oceanarium is a tourism promotion area. So I don't have a problem with that as well. Now, yeah, this is what it explains. Now, let's go to the site surroundings. Like I mentioned, you can enter this site through Thrissur as well as Kochi. And you see the vegetation over here, as well as the access to the site. Now, this is my site analysis. As you see around my site, these are the pictures which I took when I visited my site. If you see around, you see that there are no big buildings around, and it's completely, since it's an island, it has another island next to it, and even that comes under tourism promotion zone. So these places, it's very aesthetically appealing. Like the skyline is very aesthetically appealing, and you won't have a building which is not related to this tourism randomly pop out, and it won't ruin the aesthetic point of this site. Now there are different kinds of trees in this site, like coconut, neem trees, which is obviously seen in Kerala. And these are the contours in the site. And here, as I show you, these are the existing entry to the site from the Thrissur side. Now, let's do the SWOT analysis. So what are the strengths of this site? The strengths are it's a developing area, it's a future major tourist hub, the skyline is aesthetically very pleasing, it's away from the city chaos, it has a connection both from Thrissur and Kochi. So these are my strengths, which I can use in my design. Now, what is the weakness? So the weakness is it's not yet a prime location, it's currently not easily accessible as we saw. And because of the CRZ rules, out of 10 acres, I'll only be able to use 4 acres because 50 meter from all around the setback, I'll have to give a setback and I only have 4 acre left. So this weakness will have to turn into strength. Now, what is the opportunity? The opportunity is it is a proposed tourist hub already. So I can propose marine related building in the island, and I can propose adventure sports as well, as there is abundant area which is not to be used as a build space. Like I said, the 50-meter the 50-meter setback can be used for other purposes, which is temporary structures. Now, what are the threats? The threats are that it is a flood prone area, as we saw 2 years ago, and there's up to 30-meter hazard zone from entry to the site, and it might be prone to soil erosion during monsoon. So these threats will have to turn into opportunities as well. Now, let's get into my master plan zoning. Why I zoned it and how I zoned it. Let me show it to you. So yeah, this is the existing site of how it is. You can see that it is about 10 acres approximately. And the black line, what you see in the center is the 50-meter setback from the high tide line. And also these blue dots, what you see is the hazard line. So this hazard line is nothing but this is still where the water had come in during the floods. So preferably it is suggested you don't build any permanent structures here, and you should put such structures over there which can be easily removed and kept inside the site if in case there's a flood or heavy rains. And the major contours are from 2 meter to 18 meter from the water level. Now, in this second part, so we've already zoned the hazard line and the CRZ zone. Now, what do we have to do? Now, as I said, I have only 4 acre land left to build my main building, like the built up area. So this center part is where I have to build my buildings. And here, if you observe, I've given an artificial canal over here. So proposing an artificial canal divides the site into 2 major parts. It reduces the flooding effect on site. So there are 3 major entrances now. So one is from the Kodangalur entry, which is from the Thrissur side. And the other one is over here from the bridge, which is from the Kochi side. And I've also proposed a ropeway over here because the contour is 18 meter and it's going to be pretty high. And since it's a tourism, it has to generate some kind of revenue. So now there are three major entries, and you see the center part is for the built structures, and around we'll have temporary structures. Now let's go to the next part of the zoning. Now here I have zoned it based on the vehicular and pedestrian movement, and I've given the parking spaces as well. And here is the landscape area. So these are the landscape areas, what you see. So as we observe, the center completely is for our built-up structures, permanent structures, and the surrounding areas will be for the temporary structures. So this was my master plan zoning. This is how it works. Next, let's see our master plan. There are a few major buildings which I've proposed in this. The main one is obviously the Oceanarium block, the main Samudra Oceanarium block. And then we have the administrative block, we have the floating restaurant, we have banquet halls and the revolving restaurant, and we have the exhibition pavilion. So these five are the main buildings. And we have other buildings like the kitchen, we have the Chinese fishing nets, we have the adventure sports block, we have the ropeway. So I'll be explaining about a few buildings in detail. And over here, you can also see the service areas which have been provided. And here you can see the Chinese fishing nets, which were already present on the site before. And I wanted the locals to continue having it so that it's like a local revenue generator. Now, these are a few exterior views. I'll show you a fast forwarded walkthrough, which is just a conceptual walkthrough. So as you see, as you enter, you see the Oceanarium block on the right, and this is a floating restaurant. And as you move forward, you see the Oceanarium block. This is the canal, and you see the revolving restaurant and the banquet halls. In the front, you see the ropeway. So as you move ahead, you again see the backside of the Oceanarium, adventure sports on the left, exhibition pavilion on the left, admin on the right, and the Oceanarium block on the right. So this was a short idea of how the master plan is. Now I won't be explaining in detail about each building, but I'll just tell you what all are the sustainable features I've used in each building. So first is the Oceanarium block. As you can see, it's located right next to the Oceanarium building. And these are a few views. Now, these are the few plans. So what I've used over here is the main thing what I've used, two main meta features I've used. One is the mechanical lures, which acts as a wall, which opens and closes. It has a semi-open seating area, which opens and closes, and it gets in air and it keeps the interior cool. It also has a wind tunnel, which helps in keeping the interiors cool. Since Kerala is a very hot place, we need to work on things which help in keeping the interiors cool. So as you can see in these elevation, you see these louvers which are open now. So when it's raining or if it's very sunny, it closes and it forms like a wall. So it just looks like a wall when it's closed. So this is the concept of that. The next one is the exhibition pavilion. So over here, the exhibition pavilion is just arranged in a staggered design, which can be used for art or food exhibitions. Now, the reason why I placed it in a staggered manner is because an exhibition pavilion is supposed to look interesting. And when it has these staggered placements and when it has glass coming in between, so the sunlight plays it gives you very interesting shapes inside. So yeah, these are a few details about it. Now, next is the floating restaurant. So here, floating restaurant is not a permanent structure. So these are a few views of the floating restaurant. As you see, these are divided into hexagons, right? So there are a lot of hexagons. Each of this is a different unit as it is explained over here. So this floating restaurant works on the concept of buoyancy, and it is held on the seabed through anchors. So this is a detail of how this unit is going to work. And when it's flooding or when there are heavy rains, this actually can be removed unit by unit and kept inside the site. So that's the concept of my floating restaurant. Now let's go to the banquet halls and revolving restaurant. So why I wanted to give a revolving restaurant is because there was an opportunity in our site that our skyline is very aesthetically appealing, and providing something like a revolving restaurant can generate revenue. So that's also a plus point. And also this revolving restaurant has a spice garden below, and this is again for the localites because Kerala is very famous for its spices, and having a spice garden can increase tourist inflow. So, and the banquet halls are just for, you can use it for marriages or, like just dinners or meetings. So these are a few views, and yeah, these are a few details of how it is planned out. Now let's come to the main building, which is the Oceanarium block. So this is the Oceanarium block, and this block is divided into 5 zones, which is the rainforest, gorge, coastal, mangrove, and deep ocean, based on which different marine species are placed inside. So I won't be explaining in detail. I'll just explain the concept of this. So there are two major concepts in this. One is the form, which is I've used the concept of twin koi fishes, and it is considered as a good luck when two koi fishes are placed this way. So that was one of the reasons. And the other reason is because in my site, I had to place my building in a linear way, and I felt that dividing it into two units would create more interest, as I've understood from my case study. And the other thing is, my building, since it's an oceanarium, I cannot have natural ventilation. I need to give mechanical ventilation. So having openings and providing meta architecture or meta features would not work for this building. So since Kerala is a very hot place, one major thing what I could do was to reflect sunlight and help in keeping the interior cool. So what I've tried to do is I've given a shell structure all around my building, which is made up of aluminium shingles, as you see over here. So these are the aluminium shingles. So these are little square units which are placed next to each other. And when there is a wind movement, it moves in a way, it looks like a wave movement. So again, as I learned from my case study, when you see a building, when you see a tourist building, it's supposed to make you feel like you're, entering into something related to a marine building, which was missing in my case studies. So this was also one of the reasons how I, came up with this concept. Now let's just look into the circulation diagram. I won't be explaining in detail, but it has 4 floors. The ground floor is completely for the service area, and the third floor, half of it is for the service area. So the remaining first floor, second floor, and half of the third floor is for the exhibits. And as you see on top, it is the roof structure, which is the shell structure, which is supported by trusses. Now, these are a few interior views of the first, second, and the third floor, which houses exhibits. So as you can see, we have different types of exhibits, the cylindrical exhibits, rectangular exhibits. We have touch pools. So there are different types of exhibits. We've provided cafes. We've provided lounge areas, washrooms, fire escape areas. So these are the plans, and these are the circulation diagrams. So as you see over here, this is the structural detail of how the building is going to work. So the design, so in the elevations, as you see, the outside part, what you see are the aluminium shingles. And so that's what the elevation shows you, the shell structure. And in the section, you see the various level differences and how it creates an interesting, how it becomes more interesting for the tourist who's walking inside. And this is the structural system, as I mentioned. It has a waffle slab with I columns and beams. It also has 400 RCC walls with, so this is for the main building. And for the shell structures, we'll have 1 meter steel truss for about 6 to 8 meter span. And we'll also have a steel plate shell roof with aluminium shingles as shown. So which creates the wave pattern. Now, yeah, I'm done with it. So I'll just have my conclusion. So as we understood from this, oceanariums are not just for entertainment purpose, but will also cater marine enthusiasts and biologists. It educates people about fishes and also marine flora and fauna. And yeah, the major importance would be the awareness it creates on how we affect sea creatures, and it teaches us how to live in coordination without harming them. And educating people in this respect and stressing the urgency would not be better achieved than through entertainment facility, like we already discussed. And urbanization, progressive development, and pollution has led to the decline. And by introducing an oceanarium in this area and making it a sustainable project, the above mentioned points would be fulfilled and marine tourism can flourish in India.
Yeah,
So
Sapna.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sapna. It was really an interesting presentation.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
It was well structured and lot of potential design features. Thanks to
Thank you so
Pranoti
much,
ma'am for
ma'am.
the guidance. All the very best.
Thank you, thank you. I think Sapna has put a lot of effort. I really appreciate. She has shown a lot of interest. She has done a lot of studies for it. So, good work, Sapna.
Thank you. All the very best.
Thank you,
Hi
Sapna.
Sapna, good work. Good work.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah. Hi Sapna, can you hear me? Good work, Sapna. Keep it up.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Good, Sapna. Even your explanation was with good clarity. Keep it up.
Yeah, it was
Thank
really
you,
well
ma'am.
structured.
Yeah.